Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host, Sean Gann, alongside my partner, Jack McNicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. If you not have the chance, go check out our website at justsayingfootball.com and follow us on Instagram at Just Saying No GWJS for article and video updates. Jack, the franchise tag deadline has officially ended, and what a day it was.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of trades, a lot of people getting tagged, a lot of people signing contracts. So let's jump into the contract of all contracts that just went down with Aaron Rodgers, who just signed a massive 4-year, $200 million deal that includes $153 million guaranteed. What are your thoughts on this record-setting contract?
Yeah, record setting is totally right. I mean, that's like my first thought there is, how it, affects the quarterback market going forward. You're looking at a guy who's now making $50 million a year in average salary. And then you're looking at guys like Pat Mahomes, who when he signed his extension a couple of years ago, that $45 million Patrick Mahomes was making was $10 million over what the highest one was at that time. So we're obviously moving up with that. Rodgers, 2 MVPs in a row. We keep saying, he could retire whenever he wants. He'd still be on top, but that's obviously not his decision. He's around to torture Sean until his late 20s come around, and he will have, about 20% of $1 billion in his pocket by then, more than he's got now, man. It's wild. And, you can't talk about that without talking about his buddy Davante Adams getting tagged. So what are we thinking about that? Like, how do these guys proceed after, giving this much money to Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, with the Packers, it's always been cash incentives up front. That's how they've always gone around the salary cap. It always seems super schemy. They're probably going to do it for this, considering that they're, I think I have like the 5th worst cap space, like negative 24 million right now. So they are going to have to probably let go of some players. I'm looking at Zadarius Smith as a potential guy to get cut. He doesn't want to restructure right now. He carries a huge cap hit. More and more likely that he's going to get the cut. But if you're Green Bay, if you're the front office, if you're the fans, and if you're the rest of the team that you've already secured your contract, you're saying, nice. You have such a big sigh of relief. You got arguably the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the entire NFL back again for a 3rd straight year. I will say this, though. Davante Adams is going to make $20.14 million on this franchise tag.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
The truth is, his market value is coming in at around $25 to $28 million. So the franchise tag secures him for this year, assuming he signs it. But I think that he's still going to be looking for that long-term deal. He's 29 years old. You're kind of at that age where, wide receivers nowadays, they don't cap out at 31 anymore. They can make it till 33, 34. We're beginning to see this more and more.
Totally.
So this is his last opportunity to get a mega deal. Like, this is the last time he's really going to get to sign a big contract. And I don't know if he's going to want to stick around for the 1-year deal if Green Bay and him can't reach an agreement going forward that's going to pay him what he deserves. Cooper Kupp had an amazing season. And it's not to take away from this, but I do genuinely believe that over the last 3 years, Davante Adams has solidified himself as the clear-cut number 1 wide receiver. That's not to take away from what Kupp did this season, but if you look at the accumulation of the last 3 seasons, what he's done with Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams is the best wide receiver in football, and he deserves to be paid like that. So while you're really happy for 2022 for Green Bay, there still is that like little thing in the back of your head that's like, but is he going to be around after 2022? Are we going to get him around for 2022? Does he want to play out just a 1-year deal? Because again, it's the NFL. What happens if you get an injury and now all of a sudden it screws up your market value for next year? We're looking at that for OBJ right now. He got injured in the Super Bowl, messed up his market value coming into this offseason,
Mm-hmm.
So he has to be careful with that. I think it's just something to continue monitoring with
Totally.
Davante Adams.
Yeah, and not just him, but a lot of guys tagged last week. Earlier this week, Chris Godwin for the
Jesse
Buccaneers.
Bates.
They're working on a deal. Cam Robinson, Dalton Schultz, and Mike Gesicki both tagged. Orlando Brown for the Chiefs. Jesse Bates, as Sean mentioned. David Njoku is surprised. For a lot of people with the Browns, but I mean, it's very interesting, this franchise tag, because it's we've seen it over the last couple of years kind of accumulate into most likely this player is going to leave. He's not going to sign. Most of these players in these positions are looking for long-term deals, like Davante Adams, even Godwin. I think he's around 25, 26 years old, 27 now. So, he's definitely looking for a big, massive deal out of Tampa Bay as well. And really what we're looking for here, is, where do these guys end up if they're not going to get signed? But I do think, teams like Dalton Schultz, Dalton Schultz for the Cowboys, definitely going to work out a deal. Mike Gesicki, Dolphins have plenty of money to franchise him. He'll make $10 million next year. Just a lot of movement. And, before free agency, seeing some of these guys who were hoping would be top free agents, now franchise tagged, it does throw a little bit into the wheel. But one guy I got to say, wasn't there a receiver here that got paid this week?
There was, and his name is Mike Williams, man. He signed a nice lucrative deal, and honestly, he deserved it. He came out this season over 1,000 yards. He was looking like a bust after being such a high first-round pick. Came out this season and went absolutely off. And I think a lot of it has to do with Joe Lombardi, their offensive coordinator. He came, quarterbacks coach for the Saints for quite some time. From 2016 to 2020, got to learn under Sean Payton, a great offensive mind, great schemer. Got to learn with Drew Brees and along with Drew Brees to help the development of a young Justin Herbert, who's already taken another big leap in year 2, and I expect another even bigger one in year 3, considering there's a new quarterback in the AFC West that we're about to get into. But locking down Mike Williams, keeping this offense solidified. You got Keenan Allen now. You got Justin Herbert. You got Mike Williams. You got Austin Eckler. Now, at this point for the draft, I think it's really just looking at the offensive line, shoring up the offensive line, and getting that ready for the 2022 season, and then doubling down on the defense in the later rounds. And Chargers in a great spot. That was a good signing. Yeah. I'm happy that they got Mike Williams.
Yeah, you put him across Keenan Allen, and we saw so many flashes this year of him being great. Very, very excited he finally got it. Former top 10 pick, like Sean said, was looking like a bust, but man, just happy he got paid. About amongst all these franchise tags going around, he was a guy who definitely deserved it. Another notable contract this week, Harold Landry, got paid, man, 5 years, $87.5 million from the Titans, first seed in the AFC last year. He's really shown out. So it's a crazy great time right now prior to free agency. But there was one thing this week that I'm going to make sure that you talk about that had to have been one of the craziest pieces of news. Sean texted me the other day. I look at my phone, I look up, and I couldn't believe it. What happened, Sean?
Russell Wilson, man.
Wilson.
He is no longer a Seattle Seahawks member. Russell Wilson was just traded to the Denver Broncos. So let's go over this trade, break down this trade a little bit so everyone's aware. Seattle received so much for this. They got quarterback Drew Lock, tight end Noah Fant, defensive lineman Shelby Harris. They are also going to be getting 2 first-round picks. It doesn't become official until March 16th when the new league year begins, but it's projected to be the number 9 overall pick in the 2022 draft this year that Denver held, and then it will be whatever it is in 2023. They also got 2 second-round picks, one in 2022, which is number 40, and then a later one in 2023. And they got a 2022 5th rounder. Denver is going to get Russell Wilson and a 2022 4th rounder. Now, for Denver, you got to be really happy about this. Since Peyton Manning and that 2015 Super Bowl winning championship, 11 starting quarterbacks for Denver. That is not good. So I think you're happy if you're Denver. What are you thinking?
Yeah, so many quarterbacks in such a small time, and the division around them only getting better. We literally saw the Chiefs get in this year, as well as the Chargers and the Raiders had to fight literally to the last moment of the season to get in. So this division is hot right now, and with the Denver defense, we were talking about them all last year being this defense that was so good with an offense with no quarterback, and now the offense. We're talking about how they had all these keys: Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy. They have 2 great running backs, Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. And we look at this team and say, they're just a quarterback away from making it. But I'm very excited. The Broncos saw the division, the competition around them, and they went after the best option they possibly could have.
Yeah. And, if you're Seattle, if you think back to it, before the 2021 season, they traded for Jamal Adams. They gave up a 2021 first-round pick. They gave up a 2022 first-round pick. They gave up a 2021 3rd rounder. They got that all back. They missed out on the 2021 first-round pick, but now they have the 2022 second-round pick. They get an extra pick in 2023 in the first round. They get some of these 3rd rounders back that they're going to need. And Seattle enters what is now looking like a full rebuild. They just let go of Bobby Wagner, arguably the best linebacker in the NFL. He was a cap casualty. He carried a $16.6 million cap, and it's the official end of the era. There's no one left on the Legion of Boom.
Yeah.
There's no one left on that offense.
No Marshawn Lynch, no Russell Wilson.
No Russell Wilson. Only Pete Carroll is the last guy that remains. And I was mainly shocked by this trade because the front office and Pete Carroll were like, we're not trading Wilson. He's not going anywhere. He's doing all this. And it seems like Wilson wanted to go to the Broncos. He exercised his no trade clause. He was the one that had to do that for this to happen.
Yeah.
And I think as of right now, and only time will tell, obviously you don't know what the future holds for either team.
Yeah.
I think you can comfortably say that you're walking out of these both teams happy with the outcome. Like you just mentioned, they finally get their quarterback. They've been trying so hard since Peyton Manning. The AFC West has you got Carr, you got Mahomes, you got Herbert. All these teams are trying to get their guy. And then Seattle gets all their picks back. And like you said, like Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, possibility of Melvin Gordon should he return in free agency, and Javonte Williams. Like, this is a good offense and has a solid offensive line. So all the problems that we were talking about with Seattle over the last few years, really shoddy defensive play, poor offensive line play, not a good running back system, or at least consistent running back. Chris Carson's a good running back. He gets injured and fumbles a little bit too much, but not consistency. Now he has this all Russell Wilson. So I don't think that they are an immediate Super Bowl contender right now. Everything still runs through KC. They're in a really, really tough division. AFC North is still one that you can't necessarily sleep on. Of course, you have the Buffalo Bills in the AFC East. AFC is not going to be easy, but I think that this really does boost their chances of making the playoffs. And that's a really good first step towards building your team for the future. And 33 years young, Wilson has 6 more years, assuming all goes well. And let's not forget, up until last season, he had 8 to 10 seasons where they were winning seasons. Last year was his first ever losing season, and he was injured for it. So,
and I agree, though. It's just it translates into both these teams and where they are right now. Seattle, they're looking like the bottom of the division where the Super Bowl champion is currently in. You have the
49ers.
You got the 49ers, you got the Cardinals, you got the Rams in that division. So for him, it's not looking too good for them. After having 3 playoff teams in your division, now you got to go out to the AFC. But, Russell Wilson, I love this trade for him. I like that the Seahawks have been in cap hell for the last couple of years, and they finally fixed that in obviously, the worst way they could have, getting rid of their 2 franchise players. But the rebuild is good. I mean, Drew Lock is a good bridge for this year. Shelby Harris, a solid defensive lineman. Noah Fant adds some Seahawk, tight end, little, action there for him, and the continuity with Drew Lock is good. And, whatever happens to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett Adams, who are apparently being shopped, we have no way of knowing. But, what we do know now is they have the cap space. They have the draft capital to kind of, move on from the Legion of Boom era and just, kind of start something new here while everyone around them is getting better. But Denver, they're not, like you said, I think next year they'll be in a win now mentality. This year is like, let's get this right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think honestly the real loser of this trade is Jamal Adams, because he wanted out of New York. He's playing with the Jets. He wanted out of there for so long. He's like, I gotta be on a playoff team, want to be on a winning team, and then get some wins in his first season, plays in the postseason for the first time his first year, and then the second year quarterback is gone. Bobby Wagner is gone. They're in full rebuild. They don't make the playoffs in the second year. Probably if the Seahawks make the playoffs next year, I will be
shocked,
blown away.
I'd be pretty shocked.
I'd be really, really shocked. So, I mean, loser of this trade is really Jamal Adams, who was pushing so hard to get out of New York and be on a winning team, is now in the worst division to be in, and on not the best team in that division. So, Jamal Adams, sorry, bud, you are the loser of this trade. Now, moving on to the last big trade of the day, which came as a shock. Carson Wentz is going to the Washington Commanders. Commander Carson.
Commander Carson. Is that what we're going to call him now?
I saw Adam Schefter tweeted that and I loved it. And it's going to be Commander Carson from now on, whether he's the captain or not. Just to break this down. So Indianapolis and Washington did a pick swap in the second round. Indianapolis is going to move up from 47 to 41. Obviously, Washington is going to go back from 41 to 47. Indianapolis is also going to get a 2022 third rounder and a 2023 third rounder that could become a second rounder if Wentz plays 70% of his snaps. Washington gets quarterback Carson Wentz, and then the 2022 pick swap in the second round. So they get Wentz and now the 47th pick instead of the 41st pick in the draft. I'm going to say I want to ask a question with who's going to win this trade, and I know it's the Colts right now. The reality is that, and for me, yes, they don't have a first round pick this year. We don't know who their quarterback is, possibly Ellinger, potentially Browning. Eason, not Browning. We're not sure who is going to be their quarterback one, which is always worrisome as you're now kind of right up into the draft.
Exactly.
That's a little bit panicky. But what I think is they get their picks back from when they traded from Carson Wentz. If they're able to notch 2 second rounders, it's going to end up being worth their first rounder. That is the 16th overall pick right now, or 17th overall pick right now.
Yeah.
And what's most important to me about this is they currently were sitting at $41 million in cap space, which was fifth. And that was solid. It's a solid cap space to be at. But when they traded Carson Wentz, Washington agreed to take on the full $28 million going to Wentz this year, which means that the Colts don't need to worry about that at all.
Yeah, no
so they now sit at $69.8 million in cap space. And you know who needs to be signed right now? Quentin Nelson. Okay. Yeah. So they just freed up their cap for the future of their offensive line and Quentin Nelson. And they could still go out with the extra cap they're going to have, get a guy like Allen Robinson for the wide receiver group, maybe get a Juju Smith-Schuster. If you really want to go bold, you could maybe sign Devontae Adams. I don't know how much he's going to want to go there if you don't have a quarterback solidified there.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of moves. And then going forward, I mean, they could sign Jimmy. Like, they've given themselves cap flexibility to sign a wide receiver, to sign a free agent quarterback, to make a trade at quarterback potentially for Cousins and take on that big contract. Like, they can do a lot. And I like that for the Colts. I think that they won this trade. I don't know if Washington won this trade. I don't know if this is the right trade for Washington. Wentz played much better last year compared to 2020, but I don't know how much of that was Frank Reich, his former quarterback's coach. I don't know how much of that was just the ability of having Jonathan Taylor on that line, having the offensive line of the Colts. Like, I don't know if this is really going to be a huge win for Washington in the long term.
Yeah. So, I mean, breaking down the trade for me, I think that, this obviously says that, Washington's not going with Taylor Heineke. They had that experiment last year. And I think that, this is great though for guys like, Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin. Like, these are the kind of the receivers that really played to Wentz's strengths, in my opinion. I think Wentz and his familiarity with the division is kind of something that a lot of people are underrated on. But the Colts definitely won. You get the financial freedom, you get a little draft capital after losing your first round this year due to that trade you made to get him. If they made the playoffs this year and made some kind of a run with that Jonathan Taylor campaign, I think that's great. But it didn't happen. And, I'm really looking at it like, I would love to see them kind of be able to advance and be able to, just kind of be able to each of these teams take this step with this. I hope that Indianapolis finds their quarterback and becomes a complete team. And I hope that Washington can get Wentz, to be successful. We've seen him be successful in the past. Injuries have obviously plagued that progress. But, this is a guy who was drafted number 2 overall just 5 years ago, got a good arm, athletic, he's a big guy. I think what's great about this is really that, you have the opportunity to, kind of step into this Ron Rivera offense with a quarterback like this. And, I'm excited just to see kind of how Washington does. They made the playoffs 2 years ago with their defense with Ron Rivera. Now you have them, having a bad season last year after getting some good wins. And, Ron Rivera's, he does not like to lose. He does not take it well. So, no. I think that he's going to try to make this as easy for Carson as possible, try to, get Antonio Gibson involved as much as possible. I think that Washington definitely benefited from this. This was the move I think both the teams needed to make right now.
Yeah, I think Washington saw, Wilson getting traded, Rodgers getting signed, and all of a sudden they're like, shit, we got to make a move. But what surprised me most about it is that the rumor was Washington was ready to offer 3 first-round picks to Seattle for Wilson. And I think ultimately what happened was that Wilson said, I won't open up my trade clause to that. I think he wanted to go to a team that would allow him a little bit more offensive help. And so Washington had to then say, all right, well, we're not going to get Wilson, so we'll go out for the next best available player, and that's Carson Wentz for them,
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I think they did really want Wilson. If you're putting a package together centered around 3 picks, 3 first rounders, you clearly want someone pretty obviously.
Yeah.
So time is going to tell for me about how this Wentz thing will pan out. I don't know how comfortable I am for it with Washington. And I think that the real winners of this trade are the Eagles fans. I mean, they're going to be so excited that they get to play Carson Wentz twice a year now. So I think that they're the real winner. Before we sign off here, I forgot to ask a question earlier, and I just want to get to it now. The Aaron Rodgers contract. What does this mean for Jordan Love? And is he a tradable asset right now to any possible team? Is this, should he be thinking about, should I get out of here now that this deal has happened? Like, what does this mean for Jordan Love?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was my first question yesterday too. Was like, hey, Aaron Rodgers gets signed. Where, what does that mean for a guy you just traded up for in the first round? And then they came out with a report yesterday saying that they don't want to trade Jordan Love. Like, they're making this guy who's got 2 years left on his contract expect like he's going to wait 5 more years to start playing in the NFL. The guy's going to be like 30 by the time they give him the job.
I know.
I think that right now they're trying to keep that stance to make him seem like he's worth more capital than he is. I think they're trying to say, well, no, we don't want to give up this asset. He's so high priced, but we've seen Jordan Love. He is a developmental project. He was a developmental project coming out of school when he lost all those weapons going into his senior year. We talked a lot about that prior to that draft in 2020. And the one thing now is, this guy has been screwed over. There's like no other way to put it, but I think a team could benefit from having him, we have not fully seen the display, but we did get to see this year in the Chiefs game when Aaron Rodgers was out. Not the best performance, especially with the weapons he had around him. So at that point, I think he goes at the end of the day for less than Green Bay thinks they're going to trade him for now. But I don't think he'll, be there. I think even next year, if Rodgers is still going, there's no way he's on that team. I think they do like a Jimmy Garoppolo thing there.
Yeah, I agree. I think at one point, it just what we've seen from him so far, the pro level, it's clear he's not worth the first round that they traded him for, and a quality backup. It's hard to find the NFL, so it's good to keep him on the roster for now. But I think you're right. Like, after a year from now, if they're still in the same situation, if there's no trade suitors, next season's going to be the season to offload him. He's going to be coming in. You're not going to sign him to the 5th-year deal of that contract. You're not going to pay him a huge amount being a first rounder and that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to say that they necessarily played themselves by picking Jordan Love, because at the time the Rodgers thing was uncertain. And so I get why they would go that route. Granted, I didn't love that they went that route at the time because it made no sense. They could have helped out Rodgers more. But I guess when you look back at it, like the whole grand scheme of things and coming to this moment of a 4-year, $200 million contract, like, wasn't a guarantee that Rodgers was going to be here. And even last offseason, he was saying, like, if you're not going to keep me a part of things, if you're not going to have me, be a member, and you're drafting in my future, then don't even bother keep me around. So I think at the time it was the semi-right move, but
you throw $200 million at somebody, they'll say how high.
Yeah, and they're going to have to let go of Love unless they choose to.
They gotta.
Yeah,
they gotta do right by him and at least just let he's making money during this. He's getting first round quarterback tender pay. Probably not complaining that he's not getting injured, but at the end of the day, it's hard to know what they're going to do with him now.
Yeah, and all athletes, they want to go out and they want to prove that they're worth something. He had a lot to prove. It feels like during coming into his career after everything at Utah. So
yeah,
feel for him. But that's all the time that we have. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, enjoy. A lot of off-season content coming out. Free agency starting next week. March 14th, very exciting stuff, but we'll be here to cover it all. Just check us out, justsayingfootball.com, on YouTube. Just Saying Football is our channel, and Just Saying No G WJS on Instagram for all your video article updates. Thank you guys for checking us out.
Enjoy.